yeah, there's not enough time in the broadcast, then yeah, essentially some things will be left out. Some things, in order to make the story what it's supposed to be. Okay, there we go, YouTube. YouTube finally kicked in. Shout to all my peoples on YT. Today we're going over the stream from a few days ago. Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, made a kind of wild claim, and I seen video clips. I didn't see this entire stream, and so we're sitting here watching it now to go over what he exactly said in the context of which he said it. But the clips that I seen, he said that he's not helping black people no more. And so my quick question for the day is, what exactly has he done? He said that all the help that he's ever given, all he's been called is a racist, and it's time for white people to get away from black people. My secondary question was this: was he saying or stating these crazy things before being called a racist? I don't know, but we're going to find out. So welcome to everybody on YouTube. Shout to everybody on kick.com, facebook.com. We are one big happy family today, and we're going to watch this gentleman put his foot in his mouth.
Comes up with the fake news that, quote, these documents reveal that Fox News executives and hosts knew the truth about the election, and yet they peddled election lies to the audience. So that was their summary, that the Fox News executives knew, and yet they peddled the election lies to the audience. How in the world could anybody have known that? CNN is reporting that somebody actually knew the unknowable. And they do that with like a straight face, figuratively speaking. How?
My apologies, I was muted. He's asking the question, how could anyone have known? The people at Fox have admitted that they knew all along that all the election questions were BS. And he's asking the question, how could you know the unknowable? Part of what's been going on in the world within recent years has been everyone lying to the point where it's purposeful to try to confuse everyone to the point where it's like, well, I don't know what to believe, so I'm not dealing with none of it, which means those who are crafting the lie basically win because they take away your participation without even going too hard to do so. Back in the days, there were all kinds of Jim Crow laws and things put in place in order to take away participation in the process. And now this is the same strategy. It's just more so geared toward everyone. And so now you have everyone basically at the point of where I don't know what to believe. This man asked the question, how can you know the unknowable? There were always murderers and rapists and criminals of every sort and level. I know I'm a former criminal who believed that no one saw me, no one can prove it, so therefore you don't know, and that's it. At trial, when evidence is presented and they're convicted, it's like, yo, but how the hell did they know? There's always been a way to deduce the truth. Now, prevarication or lies seem as if they're worthy and stand on the same plane as the truth, but the difference is the truth can be verified, right? If right now, today, I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the weather's kind of decent outside. It's not too cold, a little chilly, but not too cold, and not hot, but not too cold, right? It's not raining, the sky's clear, the sun's shining. And if I said that it was raining, right, it made up an entire story about how it rained so bad. You know what I mean? on Wednesday, March 1st, right? It was horrible. It was a storm outside. That story could only go so far because after a while, certain things can't be verified. Someone asked me, well, take a picture. And I take a picture and I pull my coat up and, you know what I mean, it's looking like it's storming out here and all of that. Someone will look at the picture and say, well, it doesn't look like you're wet. I mean, there are a million different ways to verify things, and some things take a little bit more verification than others, but there are ways to verify the truth. For verification, lies have, yeah, little to no
How can you say that with a
verification.
straight face? Now,
I'm,
I
go-
completely
I'm going
documents
to run it
review
back to here, the point.
wants to give his customers what they're asking for, which was, at the time, more commentary about the election integrity. Is that wrong? The customers, the audience that Fox News has, wanted that content, and Tucker and Hannity accommodated and gave them that content. Now, and here's where CNN comes up with some fake news. You have to have fake news in order to sell this narrative, right? So CNN comes up with the fake news that, quote, these documents reveal that Fox News executives and hosts knew the truth about the election, and yet they peddled election lies to the audience. So that was their summary, that the Fox News executives knew, and yet they peddled the election lies to the audience. How in the world could anybody have known that? CNN is reporting that somebody actually knew the unknowable. And they do that with like a straight face, figuratively speaking. How can you say that with a straight face? Now, I completely understand if they said something like, the election was officially called, or there's no evidence of fraud that's reliable. Well, there was plenty of evidence, but it turned out the evidence was not reliable. So this is just outrageous. When you see the press just create like a whole lie about their competitor, and the other quotes from Murdoch were, it's not a red or green issue, it's a green, meaning it's about money. At what point are you surprised that Fox News is running stories that its audience likes because they think they'll make more money that way? At what point are we supposed to be surprised by that? It would be one thing if nobody understood that Fox News leans right and the others more money left. That way. I mean, once you understand which way they lean. At what point are we supposed to be surprised by that? I think the worst accusation is one that's basically the same that CNN got caught with. The worst one is that Murdoch let Jared Kushner see the campaign ads of Trump's competitor to prepare for them, I guess. And I thought to myself, well, that does sound pretty bad. That does sound more like, directly influencing things more than just being the news. But isn't that exactly, that's what Donna Brazile did when she gave the debate questions was it to Hillary? Is that what happened? And, nobody got fired for that. Nobody got fired for that. So that stuff's sort of in the noise. Once you understand that they're both in the bag for a team, the fact that they're talking to the team and working with them, it's not like a big surprise or anything. So I think that's why it's not making much of a dent. It wouldn't surprise anybody. So I asked this question on Twitter in a Twitter poll. I said, is the press a hate group? 58%, well, here are the choices. I gave them a choice of yes, no, or F you, Scott. I figured that would be.
When people ask the question and use the general term, the press, right? What does that encompass? We use the term media, And according to my understanding, social media is just a bigger part, is a part, if not as big as Fox News and CNN and the verified television stations and newspapers. An individual like this gentleman, Scott Adams, can go on a YouTube page and, yeah, create a page and sit here and put out all kinds of information. Now, the truthfulness or deceitfulness of that information comes from this individual or that individual or that individual. It has nothing to do with the concept or the overall industry of the media or the press. And so when you ask, are they a public enemy, or I forget his stupid ass
like a
question.
big surprise or anything. So I think that's why it's not making much of a dent. It wouldn't surprise anybody.
Dumbass question.
So I asked this question on Twitter in a Twitter poll. I said, is the press a hate group?
Is the press a hate group? Or if they are, I would consider you and what you're pushing, what you're pressing, to be pretty hateful. So
58%, well, here are the choices. I gave them a choice of yes, no, or F you, Scott. I figured that would be popular this week. 58% yes, the press is a hate group. 10% said no, and 32% said F you, Scott. And, you know, nobody got. Now, yeah, that's what Donna said. When I asked, is the press a hate group? Let me ask you this. How many people immediately understood that that had to be hyperbole? Did anybody get fooled by it? Were you all sure that that was hyperbole? Because an adult would know that there's no such thing as the press, that where they all act the same. There's no such thing as the press, like one entity of all similarity. Nobody believes that. So
all right, so he is getting into that point. I'm gonna bring it back because I sort of misjudged. I hear a lot of people say crazy things, and at times I, like myself, suspect that someone is going to go down a road where they may not go, and or suspect that they're going to obfuscate certain points. And so I was just clearing out that yeah, the press isn't like a monolithic situation or entity. So I'm all right. I'm encouraged to hear him start to break that down. Let's go here.
how many people immediately understood that that had to be hyperbole? Did anybody get fooled by it? Were you all sure that that was hyperbole? Because an adult would know that there's no such thing as the press, that where they all act the same. There's no such thing as the press, like one entity of all similarity. Nobody believes that. So everybody would have known that is the press a hate group would be clear hyperbole. And that's good. Nobody complained. Nobody complained. So it's good when people understand hyperbole in some situations, but sometimes maybe they don't. Sometimes maybe they don't. Well, I'd like to thank again, I can't remember if I did this on live stream, but black conservatives have been great to me this week. So most of the black, I think most or all of the black conservatives who have looked at my controversy this week and looked into it, the ones who looked into it, yeah, we are private. The ones who looked into it said, well, that's no big deal. It's kind of alarming. Maybe it wasn't so good to use those words, but no real problem here.
See, and that right there is a major problem. This man made a statement a few minutes ago about how things aren't like the news media anchors hanging out with and looking out for politicians, right? He said there's nothing wrong with that because they're playing for the same team. Now, if I'm supposed to be getting the news from you and you're pushing a particular politician or particular policies, um, and not being straight out with it, yeah, there's sort of an issue there. Now, I bring it back to that because now he's talking about black conservatives and how they look at his commentary about black people and say, yeah, it's not really a problem here. That there is one of the most major issues. A lot of times, black conservatives or Republicans in this particular case, they remind me of like the vampire movies, right? You know the vampire movies where you have the main vampire or the vampire in his people or the actual people who are around him are sort of like what they call them familiars, in that they get real familiar with the vampire. The vampire is familiar with them, and so the vampire may not bite their necks. But the danger in that is that in order to maintain that relationship, they have to attract other humans for the vampires to feed on. And so your survival is contingent upon you throwing many others under the bus. Not a good look. And so to those black Republicans who say they have no problem with anything this guy had to say this week, yeah, you're the
A
problem.
group would be clear hyperbole. And that's good. Nobody complained. Nobody complained. So it's good when people understand hyperbole in some situations, but sometimes maybe they don't. Sometimes maybe they don't. Well, I'd like to thank again, I can't remember if I did this on live stream, but black conservatives have been great to me this week. So most of the black, I think most or all of the black conservatives who have looked at my controversy this week and looked into it, the ones who looked into it, yeah, we are private. The ones who looked into it said, oh, that's no big deal. It's kind of alarming. Maybe it wasn't so good to use those words, but no real problem here.
Maybe that's why he's being so candid. He thinks he's private. He said, yeah, we are private.
So it's good when people understand hyperbole in some situations, but sometimes maybe they don't.
So yeah, I think he thinks that not many would see
well,
this.
I'd like to thank again, I can't remember if I did this on live stream, but black conservatives have been great to me this week. So most of the black, I think most or all of the black conservatives who have looked at my controversy this week and looked into it, the ones who looked into it, yeah, we are private. The ones who looked into it
we are private.
Said, oh, that's no big deal. It's kind of alarming. Maybe it wasn't so good to use those words, but no real problem here. Now, how do you process that if you're the mainstream media? So as you know, I'm fully canceled. All of my books and comics and calendars and everything, fully canceled. How do you process the fact that black conservatives don't have a problem with what I said? Because if black conservatives don't have a problem
So hold on. How is it that you're sitting in front of a camera, right? And as I said, I suspect that he didn't think that this would get out and would be public and have such a large audience as those who have now seen it. I mean, all of the news stations, including Fox, are reporting on it. Excuse me. And so, how can you complain about being canceled when your face is on national TV? Your words are going across the country and the world, and you have the audacity. How can you say that with a straight face? The level of cognitive dissonance in these people is just wild.
Does that tell you it's about black people? Or does it, as you know,
It's
who have
crazy.
looked at my controversy this week and looked into it, the ones who looked into it, yeah, we are private. The ones who looked into it said, oh, that's no big deal. It's kind of a large,
By the way, fuck you.
use those words, but no real problem here. Now, how do you process that if you're the mainstream media? So as you know, I'm fully canceled. All of my books and comics and calendars and everything fully canceled. How do you process the fact that black conservatives don't have a problem with what I said? Because if black conservatives don't have a problem with it, does that tell you it's about black people? Or does it tell you it's about how we're framing our politics? What does that tell you? If black conservatives and black liberals all said, oh, I see that's some racism there, then I'd say that's probably racism because the correlation is really clean. Okay, all black people of all types look at it, they're all offended, it's all the same. But what happens when one political side says it's not any kind of racism anybody's worried about, and the other side says it's the worst racism we've ever seen? Does that tell you that your opinions have been assigned by the media? It does. That's a very clear signal that it's not about race, but the entire media made it about race. I mean, it's about race, obviously that's the topic. But if people who are American and black are looking at it and saying, I don't see what you're complaining about, doesn't look like a canceling situation to me, then you can rule out the fact that it's just about black and white. Could it be that the race industrial complex is once again finding a way to monetize race? Is there somebody monetizing race? Because that would be the most evil thing I could possibly think of, wouldn't you think? Imagine if you knew there was some entire industry who had figured out a way to monetize racial division. Now that would be evil. That would be evil. And what if the same group that was monetizing racial division had the power to frame any individual that they were talking about in the worst possible way? Well, that would be pretty bad. That would be pretty bad. So your worst possible situation is that the media, the Democrats, and maybe some other organizations are monetizing.
The level of cope with these people is like absolutely amazing to me sometimes. Excuse me for a second, just sharing the stream in the Kit group. The level of cope involved with some of these people is just really, really wild. So now it's not that black people have a problem. It's that media has a problem and they're convincing black people that we should have a problem too. All right, if you say so. But that goes back to the same old racist tropes of, well, you don't know what's good for you. So I'm here to tell you that you shouldn't be offended because they're telling you that you should be.
Racial.
By the way, it took no one to tell me that I should be offended. It just took hearing your words and seeing your face, and that was enough for me.
Unrest. I'm just putting that out there. Is there anybody who doubts that there is something that could be called, and by the way, I'm stealing this from a Twitter user, Rabbit Hole, so credit to Rabbit Hole for this one. But it's very clear when you see it drawn out that there is a race-baiting industrial complex, sort of a corporate entity and related entities. And so when they see a story that they can especially take out of context, like my case, it's easy to take out of context. And by the way, today it's it's now stretched into anti-Semitic. Just process that for a moment. That, let's see, Jonathan Greenblatt, he said Adams' remarks about the black community are flat out racist and should be condemned by all, period. Now, I'm not sure if he's aware that black conservatives did not condemn it. I wonder what he thinks about that. So, yes, this, and he says, I believe in counsel, not cancel, but counsel culture. So I hope, talking about me, I hope he'll apologize and work to educate himself. So Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL says that I should be apologizing. Now, he didn't specify what the apology was for, which you understand is the problem, right? If he knew what I had to apologize for, he wouldn't ask me for it, because I'll explain that later. If he had any idea what I said, it's obviously he didn't know what I said in context. He probably knew what I said, but not in context. He wouldn't ask me to explain it more. Because have you noticed that the media has completely eliminated my explanation that the reason that things are tense racially is that the public is being sold a nonstop narrative of white people being enemies and the cause of all discrimination and white supremacy and all that stuff. Now, have you seen anybody in the news? Most of you have seen lots of coverage. Have you seen anybody in the news who accurately said, oh, Adams is talking about ESG and DEI and CRT and how those are going to have an obvious impact on racial harmony, and it's already having a terrible impact. Have you seen it? Yeah. Now just imagine this. I'm double trending on Twitter today. Dilbert is trending, and my name is trending. I'm 2 of the 5 trending things on Twitter, and zero members of the media have reported what I said in context. None. Zero members of the media have reported what I said in its proper context.
Oh, that's what we're here for, to report what you said in the proper context. Just get to the point.
Not one. Am I wrong? You've all been watching the coverage. How many said that they connected it to the racial training that's happening in the public and what the obvious impact of that would be? Yeah. Now, the reason that they can't report that is, you tell me, what's the reason that they can't report my actual context? Too complex, that's part of it. It's not simple. Because it would implicate them. It would implicate them as the problem, right? The media is the problem. How much trouble do you think, or how much trouble would there be if they simply had not reported on me? Suppose I had just said what I said on social media, and that was it.
But that's the thing, that shows that you only said it just because you knew it would get media coverage. Anybody can do that. I can sit here and talk about how you look like a yeah, you can say, any one of us can say some pretty outlandish things to get attention, especially attention from the news. Any one of us can do some pretty horrific or outlandish things in order to gain some coverage from our news, local and national. It does not mean that you should do it, and just because you are doing it and you're getting coverage, that means something good. No, that's not the way it works. From Howard Stern to, Bubba the Love Sponge, to all of these people throughout the years who were known for being wild and shock jockey. Now it's everyone. bro, you're like a old white little girl on Instagram. Cut the shit, man. Damn, this is
and
just
the media
crazy.
never picked it up. It wouldn't even be anything. Because the people who saw it were like, it actually didn't make much of an impact. The actual original comments made almost no impact. Because people, were more likely to know.
Well, the original comments being that you weren't going to help black people anymore. If you haven't been doing it, then yeah, your commentary would make no impact. Now, if someone, um, the boogeyman you all like to throw out there, who's always trying to help black people, I haven't received a nickel from the guy, but you all are always saying that George Soros is throwing money behind black causes, right? I don't know how true that is. I've heard that he's dedicated some funding to certain programs throughout the years. But here's the thing: if this individual decided, you know what, I'm not going to help black people no more. I've given money, I've done this, I've done that, and it's not helping, right? Even though it wouldn't hurt me or harm me directly, because as I said, I've never received a nickel from the gentleman. But even though it won't hurt or harm me directly, if he was actually putting money in to help these organizations that help black people, and he made that statement, he's not going to put money into these organizations anymore, then yeah, that there would be an impact. There would be an impact because he's actually doing something that he previously wasn't doing, or vice versa. You, on the other hand, if you've never given a nickel to the United Negro College Fund, or you've never helped um, pull in any black animators, or done anything for anyone, then for you to make the statement that you're not going to help anymore, yeah, it was a frivolous statement and would have no impact because you weren't doing it to begin with.
It wouldn't even be anything. Because the people who saw it were like, it actually didn't make much of an impact. The actual original comments made almost no impact. Because people, were more likely to know me as a live streamer and, have a better idea what I'm up to. It was the media that made this a problem. Now, of course, they'll say, but Scott, you're the one who said it. And this would be a good time to do my impression of an NPC. Now, you've seen some of this, but I'm compiling my list of NPC things. Now, an NPC is a non-player character in a video game. And since we live in a simulation, there are lots of them. And here are the things you want to do if you're an NPC and you want to contribute to this conversation, but you have no ability to add anything useful, right? Oh, somebody's saying that Greenblatt is calling me a Holocaust denier. Just think about that. A Holocaust denier.
And they take
Because I
pride.
said it would be hard to count the number of dead. Does that sound like a Holocaust denier? It's hard to get an exact count of a horrible situation in World II. So that's a Holocaust denier. Okay. So you can see that the cancellation is going deeper.
See,
you know why the cancellation has to look for new stuff?
And that's my thing. Just be real, or as real as possible, with yourself and others, and you won't have to worry about this. Now, if the man did make a statement like it's kind of hard to count the beds, yeah. If 11 million, or suspect at least 11 million people were murdered during the Holocaust, yeah, 11 million is kind of hard to count to. It's kind of hard. I don't know how much money you've ever had, or whatever, but that is a rather large number. So if this gentleman had made a statement like that, then I wouldn't consider that anti-Semitic. I mean, I'm not the judge for what is and is not anti-Semitic. I'll keep to the black rhetoric, but personally, I wouldn't personally consider that anti-Semitic. But you all let me know what you think.
Because the stuff they found wasn't real. And at this point, people are realizing that the initial claim isn't real, that I didn't actually say something as offensive as they think. And once they realize that, they're going to have to keep with the narrative, so they're going to have to find some new stuff to add to the laundry list. I think Holocaust denier might be the, what do you call it, jumping the shark point?
It's been 2 months since Sealed was here, and I'm already
The crazy
noticing a
thing
difference.
is,
You might notice
there's a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions on other people's takes. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know? But someone may hear you say something and automatically jump to, okay, well, here's what this person means by this, or this is what this means. And I'm not really with that. I prefer to hear the context and to know what the person meant. But yeah, everyone isn't on that path, and so they'll take what you said and warp it or change it. The only reason the title of this video is that he ain't helping the blacks no more, because I've seen the video footage of him saying it. So regardless to the context, this motherfucker actually said that shit. So my video title, my stream title, isn't misleading or whatever. Yeah, but yeah. And see, I hate giving credit where it's not due, and I hate taking away credit where it's not due. If the gentleman did not say anything anti-Semitic, then all right, you know, he can be many other things, but maybe he is anti-Semitic. But if he hasn't said anything directly to prove that point, then please just stop labeling people without knowing what the label means and having proof to back up your words.
Isn't real.
Bring it back.
Of a horrible situation in World II. So that's Holocaust denier. Okay. So you can see that the cancellation is going deeper. Do you know why the cancellation has to look for new stuff? Because the stuff they found wasn't real. And at this point, people are realizing that the initial claim isn't real, that I didn't actually say something as offensive as they think.
See, and this is what it does when you accuse someone of something and the evidence isn't as prominent, right? It's like giving them a get out of jail free card for the other things that they did. Now, I don't know what he has said as far as the Jewish community, Hispanic community, LGBTQ, or any other minority community. But I know for a fact what he said about black people. And so, yeah, that's what I'm sticking with. But it gives people an out. See, I didn't say this. I didn't say that. They're lying on me. And they're also lying on me about this, which, see, and that's the craziness. Don't give them out.
And once they realize that, they're going to have to keep with the narrative, so they're going to have to find some new stuff to add to the laundry list. I think Holocaust denier might be the, what do you call it, jumping the shark point? Holocaust denier. All right, so here are the things the NPCs will say. And I like to do this in the NPC voice. Scott, the real problem here that you don't seem to understand is that you're a horrible narcissist and nobody likes you. I've seen quite a bit of that. Makes you wonder, what would be the point of that tweet? You know, I like to go on Twitter, and I'd like to be useful. I'd like to say something insightful. I think I'll just insult this guy. NPC. Then, of course, there's the NPC. The First Amendment is not the same as corporations making monetary decisions. Why don't you understand, Scott? Why don't you understand that the First Amendment only protects free speech from the government, not from corporations? They can do what they want. Well, NPCs, thank you for pointing that out. That's the first time I've ever heard it. And also, if you're an NPC, you should always point out that swimming is one of the best forms of exercise. You could just insert that in any exercise conversation, and people will say, "Oh, wow, didn't know that." The other one that used to be sensible, but is now stupid, is this one. You said those exact words. Whenever you hear that, you said those exact words, that person is always wrong. And that's a tell for realizing they don't know the context. And it's also a tell for understanding that they don't know that almost everything in the news is taken out of context. So lots of times it's what people said, it's just out of context. So the dumbest thing you could say, you'd have to be an NPC to say that, is, "You said those exact words, Scott. Don't deny it. Those are your words, the exact words. Did you say these words? Let me quote them and put them in a tweet. Did you say these words? Are these the words that came out of your mouth? Did you say yes? Yes?" Okay. Anybody who believes that the exact words will tell them something useful is not living in the present. There might have been a time when it was possible, but in 2023, every time you hear those were his exact words or hers, you know that it's a hoax. It's something out of context.
My apologies. I thought I unmuted it. This guy is coping so hard, it's ridiculous. So now when someone quotes to you your exact words, they're being misleading, or I don't get his point. But then again, he's all white dude. He's smarter than us. So, wow.
And here's the other one that's funny. "Scott, apparently you didn't understand there are consequences to actions."
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, apparently you
Is there
didn't.
somebody who doesn't understand there are consequences to actions?
You said they're talking
Anyway,
about
so
being
if you want to be
canceled.
an NPC, that's your material. Go with that. All right, so Jonathan Greenblatt. Now remember, there are some people who are, race and ethnic grifters. Grifter being somebody who makes their money by bringing up race stuff. Jonathan Greenblatt, I believe, could you give me a fact check on this? Doesn't he get paid to complain about stuff like this? If you get paid to look for injustice, how much are you going to find? It's like somebody who's a ghost hunter. All right, I'm going to pay you to find ghosts. How many did you find? Well, are you paying me by the ghost? Yes, I am. I found quite a few. Ghosts. So Jonathan Greenblatt, who gets paid to find ghosts, he found some ghosts. Good job. And he would like to have me apologize for what I don't know, and then he would have me re-educated. Do you believe that I need to be re-educated? And what exactly would they tell me? Would the re-education say you should move closer to people who don't like you? Is that what the education would be? It's a good strategy in life if you know there's a demographic group that has been poisoned by the media to be primed not to like you. Should you move close to them? Well, I think the re-education would say that I should. So I'd like to know more about the re-education. If somebody can find that out, would it be teaching me that you should spend more time with the people who have been primed to dislike you and think you're the problem? Huh. Hartwig doesn't count as an education. You might be right about that. All right. This brings us to what I'll call the Dr. Drew hypothesis about this situation. I guess he said on a podcast yesterday, quote, what Scott is up to, I don't know. But he's always up to something. Does that sound like me? He's a hypnotist. Okay, fair enough. And he's a persuasion expert. And he's been playing with the idea of how to create hoaxes. So he's up to something here. Huh. Interesting hypothesis. David Boxenhorn added to that, and he said, my take is that Scott Adams is locating himself at the fulcrum of power. From now on, any conversation about race in the U.S. will have to include him. Huh. What do you think of that?
What do you think of that?
Have I located myself at the fulcrum?
What do you think of that? There are plenty of conversations, my conversations based upon race and conversations with blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, all across this country and the globe that have nothing to do with the Dilbert guy. You said something crazy. People were chastising you for it, and you're playing the victim. After this is over, in order to stay relevant, he's going to say something else just as crazy. It's how Ben Shapiro and Steve Crowder and all these other guys, Candace Owens, if they took a normal or realistic take to damn near anything in context of dealing with the world, we would all be pretty surprised. This guy, I never really knew his politics, but as I said, I seen the video clip of him saying it, not someone reporting him saying it, of him saying it. And so, yeah, so you're in the conversation for now, buddy.
Fulcrum of power, and from now on, any conversation about race in the U.S. will have to include me. Well, it does look like that, doesn't it? It looks like that.
No,
So I
it
asked
doesn't.
on Twitter, what is the first rule of persuasion? What's the first rule of persuasion? Getting attention, right? Attention is persuasion. I think Mike Cernovich says this directly. But persuaders know this, right? Attention is number one. That's what Trump did so well. Trump sucked all the energy from the other candidates, got all the attention. Yeah, so attention is the first rule of persuasion. If you were going to have a conversation today about ESG and CRT and its effect on society, who would be somebody you'd want to talk to? Like, who would be somebody who'd really get you some clicks if you were talking about the way the public is being educated on, DEI and ESG and CRT? Who would be a person who would just naturally just jump out as a provocative voice that would have something to say? Interesting. And let me ask you this.
See, but that's the thing. When you go into a conversation, you enter a conversation with the goal of being provocative. There's going to be pushback. There's going to be pushback. And that's not the fault of anyone involved in the conversation, short of the individual who went into the conversation with the goal of being provocative. It's not what you want to do, not where you want to be. As I said, some of these individuals go in with that goal. So, yeah.
As a provocative voice that would have something to say about ESG and CRT and its effect on society, who would be somebody you'd want to talk to? Like, who would be somebody who'd really get you some clicks if you were talking about the way the public is being educated on, DEI and ESG and CRT? Who would be a person who would just naturally just jump out as a provocative voice that would have something to say? Interesting. And let me ask you this. Do you think that the poisoning of racial relations that's coming through CRT and ESG and DEI, Do you think that's one of the biggest problems in the country? Or is it a small problem or a big problem? Is it more important than, let's say as an existential risk to the United States, is the way that the youth are being educated, specifically the CRT, ESG, DEI stuff, is that something that could be fixed? Is it fixable? In a theory, like it'd be really, really hard, but is it fixable? I would think so. Let me tell you something that's in my...
So I was just told in the chat on YT that excuse me, that he's helped Hawk Newsom and other brothers, and it turned out to be nothing. Now, I'm not too hip about the history of Hawk Newsom, but
canceled.
If this is someone that he tried to put on, I brought it back a little. If this is someone who he tried to put on and it didn't work out, or I mean, the brother went his own way, or whatever, or he was around the brother espousing these crazy viewpoints. Because here's the thing, if someone's supposed to be helping me out and their presence, me working with them, will be something that, that benefits myself as well as them. You know what I mean? Then that's good for everyone. But if it's a relationship that benefits them, where the old saying is yay for me, fuck you. That's not a good look. So, yeah, I'll do my homework to see how he helped this individual that chat is saying that he tried to help out. And as I said, if it is true that he put someone on or whatever, that's a personal relationship. So you're gonna encourage millions of white folks to get away from millions of black folks to not help or deal with people in any form or fashion, even though the individuals who you're speaking to are in the seat of power for now. That's not cool, especially based upon a personal relationship or even a myriad of personal relationships. It has nothing to do with the larger. So you attempt to negatively affect millions of black people. Yeah. Back to your words, sir. Back to your words.
Just naturally just jump out.
And I do my homework.
Provocative voice that would have something.
As I said, I brought them back some, so.
Interesting. And let me ask you this. Do you think that the poisoning of racial relations that's coming through CRT and ESG and DEI, do you think that's one of the biggest problems in the country? Or is it a small problem or a big problem? Is it more important than, let's say as an existential risk to the United States, is the way that the youth are being, that the poison...
Hold on, what was the question? My apologies for jumping all around. I missed this question. And anything else, listen, please express yourself, because I want to understand the viewpoint. As I said, someone who is apparently is a fan of his, not of mine, expressed to me that he has tried to help black people. So I want to learn about that. But I'm jumping around because I sincerely want to hear where his viewpoint is coming from. If it's worthy of checking out, or statements, from what I've heard, certain statements just are straight foolish. But if on another note he's saying something else and it holds true, then we want to look at that as
About
well.
ESG and CRT and its effect on society, who would be
All right.
who would be somebody you'd want to talk to? Like, who would be somebody who'd really get you some clicks if you were talking about the way the public is being educated on, DEI and ESG and CRT?
Oh, all right.
Who would be a person who would just naturally just jump out as a provocative voice that would have something to say? Interesting. And let me ask you this. Do you think that the poisoning of racial relations that's coming through CRT and ESG and DEI, do you think that's one of the biggest problems in the country? Or is it a small problem or a big problem? Is it more important than, let's say as an existential risk to the United States, is the way that the youth are being educated, specifically the CRT, ESG, DEI stuff, is that something that could be fixed? Is it fixable? In a theory, like it'd be really, really hard, but is it fixable? I would think so. Let me tell you something that's in my canceled book. Yeah. Well, let me get to that in a moment. First of all, here's my take on CRT, ESG, and DEI. Now, this is the same take that I took in the Dilbert comic before it got canceled. It's still going to be on the Locals platform, but these are good ideas, well-meaning ideas, that eventually go wrong. And why do they go wrong? What is the mechanism? So let's say, CRT and ESG and DEI, they'll have high-level goals, which in themselves sound good. Yeah, what happens is the grifting class gets in there, and then everybody has to signal to the grifting class. So the grifters, the one who's making money on introducing stuff, they'll start to embarrass the people who don't do it, and then everybody needs to signal that they're on board, and then if you're not on board, you look like a racist. So you can see the mechanism is very clear. Somebody has a good idea with lofty goals, and then it's completely mismanaged by the grifters and the money makers and the packagers and the politicians and the managers. And then the people who are not directly in the money flow are scared to death to say it's bad because it's been introduced as an excellent thing. So the most Dilbert thing that I could ever teach you is that the fact that they're great ideas is almost a guarantee that they're going to destroy something. Because the great idea is what attracts all the energy. Hey, that's a great idea. Then all the grifters come in. They turn it into the opposite of what you wanted. And then everything falls apart.
This is not just a deck of cards. This is a collection of 54 beautifully designed storyteller tactics, full of practical tips that will get your next presentation from dull PowerPoint.
My apologies.
All right, here's.
I'm actually looking up Hawk Newsome. I need to figure out more what's going on. As I said, people have their personal relationships, and I don't care about all of that. That has nothing to do with the rest of us. You know what I mean? However they deal with one another, that's their dealings. So I'm just doing my homework and judging this man based upon what he has to say about the rest of us.
A big theme. I believe that everybody has an operating system, meaning that there's a go-to kind of default way you see the world. And that some of these operating systems are really good, and some of them are really unproductive. Thank you. That's very nice of you. And here's the worst operating system. I'm a victim, right? A million people have said this, but I'm going to add to it so it won't be so boring in a moment, right? The worst operating system is that you're a victim. Now, suppose you actually are. Suppose you actually can totally draw a line from what other people did to bad things that happened to you. Should you then, because it would be accurate, it's accurate, should a victim mentality be the one you would adopt? It can help you a little. Complaining definitely helps. Complaining always helps, right? But it only helps you up to a point, and then it destroys everything. Now let me give you a model that is better than CRT, better than ESG, better than DEI, because they're all victim. They're sort of, even though they don't maybe present it that way, they are a victim vibe, wouldn't you say? Why are you telling me to move on? Stop saying that, right? It's just the worst thing you can say in a live stream. It's just the worst thing you could do. Just don't do that anymore, okay? So here's the better operating system, the way you should go through life. A reciprocity operating system. Reciprocity. In which you see your value being only a reflection of what you've added to the system or the situation, right? Reciprocity can get you everything. Right? Victim stuff can get you some stuff in the short term. Right? In the short term, it can get you. In the long term, the only thing that works for anybody is reciprocity. Right? It's the reason you want to do business with somebody, because they'll do something for you. Reciprocity. The part that you don't see of my current drama in the news is how many people have contacted me privately, especially black Americans, and saying some version of thank you for helping me personally. And I didn't realize how many black Americans I'd personally helped, but they're contacting me and saying, I know the charges are.
Now he's getting into some of that talk, and I see him on Twitter. I don't really see too many black people saying that he's helped out, but I see him saying that he's helped out a lot of black people. So yeah, I'm bringing it back. Continue listening to this, and we're gonna get into some of his other posts. And
the part that you don't see of my current drama in the news is how many people have contacted me privately, especially black Americans, and saying some version of thank you for helping me personally. And I didn't realize how many black Americans I'd personally helped, but they're contacting me and saying, I know the charges are untrue. Obviously you're not a racist. So that's sort of been happening behind the scenes. People don't see that. Now that's the reciprocity operating system, right? I did something for some people, apparently a number of things over the years. Didn't really remember them, but that little bit of giving without asking caused these same people to surface years later, sometimes years later, to say, I got your back. That's reciprocity.
Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Hey everybody, get in here. We've got a very special coffee with Scott Adams. And as soon as you get in here, we're going to do an introduction. But those who are early, you get the benefit of the simultaneous sip. And it goes like this.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm real skeptical. Either way, I've never met you. I've looked at your bullshit comic a couple of times throughout the course of my life, but for the most part, yeah, my guy, that's this ain't it. This ain't it.
They got my back. In fact, everything good that I think that's ever happened to me is because one or more people I was with got into a reciprocity mindset. Right? The people I've worked with in lots of contexts. Now, here's what I would say would fix race relations. A reciprocity mindset. That's it. Black America has to give us something. Now, you didn't see that coming, did you? That's right. There is a huge impulse in white America to help Black America. I know because
You know what? I'm not even going to react overly harsh based upon that statement. I'm gonna bring it back just to make sure that I heard it the way I thought I heard it.
in lots of contexts. Now, here's what I would say would fix race relations. A reciprocity mindset. That's it. Black America has to give us something. Now, you didn't see that coming, did you? That's right. There is a huge impulse in white America to help Black America. I know because I've done a lot of stuff in that zone. Now, a lot of people were just tuning in to me for the first time. You don't know that I tried working with Black Lives Matter. You don't know that I supported Colin Kaepernick. You don't know that I supported, was it prison reform? You don't know that I wrote in favor of reparations, a different form of it, not the one you're seeing. You don't know, but basically you don't know that I've been working for years and years to try to figure out how to improve the Black American situation. Now,
With that being said, right? With him saying all of that, what the fuck does, you know what? If you did do it, then salute. I don't know what else to tell you. As I said, me or my people, directly, not indirectly as a group, the situation for us as a people is better. That's one dynamic. But I mean, obviously everyone in this situation is speaking selfishly. Me, myself, I've never made a nickel. I'm quite sure out of all of your help in supporting Colin Kaepernick, it's on, you've gotten paid for your services. When the bills came down for administration, you got a little bit of kickback. It wasn't all gratuitous love from your heart. I just by the way you're speaking.
for those of you who are new and don't know anything about me, could those of you who have watched me for a while just confirm that? Because, I do it in public, so you would know. Right? So, and I know, and by the way, I should say that I did all of that, all the things I mentioned, were in the context of my primary audience not liking it. You know that as well, right? That it cost me a tremendous amount of money to do something my audience said was a waste of time. Because my audience was saying, you're not going to help. It's not going to help. Don't do it. Because there's no reciprocity. Or the grifters will get in the way, or the government will screw it up, or something.
So you basically just got, yeah.
There's always something, right?
The personal relationship.
So at great personal expense for the last several years, I could have made a killing just pretending to agree with everybody. Do you know how much money I could have made live streaming from the Trump era on?
I agree.
If all
I agree with you there, buddy. I agree with you there. You could have went this route, the route you're going now. You could have went this route a long time ago and made a lot more. I know of it. If you look at all of these other conservative people who were in the entertainment space, um, any creative, if you look at the world, creatives for the most part are more so left leaning. Most creatives, of course, we all have our conservative parts where there are things about us we like to keep the way they were. Um, but for the most part, most of us creative people, we're more progressive. We don't mind seeing the world change and people, I mean, getting added to the fold as far as um, the look, the way people see others. We don't mind when others are included in that fold. We don't feel like it's taking, for the most part. There are a lot of black people who do feel like that, but it is nowhere near the majority. We can appreciate a winner.
All I did was agree with the Republicans, like Murdoch does, right?
Yeah.
The story I told you before, Murdoch says our customers want this, so we'll do this.
Yep.
I say
Yep. He said that
what
earlier.
you want is not necessarily what's good for you, right? You've seen me do it over and over again. I tell you, you might not like this, but it's good for you.
So why are you going
you
this
should hear
route
the
now?
other argument all the time. So here's what my problem was. Having worked quite a bit and at great personal expense and risk, I was doing things that realized have no reciprocity element to them. Now, I wasn't doing it to get something back. Like, that wasn't the idea. Like, I would have felt good if I'd made a difference, etc. That would have felt good. But I wasn't doing it that somebody would do something back for me. But here's what I'm going to ask for. I'm going to ask for an ask. It's very direct. And this is an ask for black Americans, right? I'm going to ask for something in return because a lot of us are very pro-black America and want it to work. And I think it's where you can get the most leverage. That's always been my argument. If you help black America, this is actually a Black Lives Matter Hawk Newsom thing that I got from him, got from Hawk, that if you help black Americans, you end up helping everybody. Because it would be hard to fix education for black Americans without it sort of accidentally fixing it for everybody, right? So it's like this great lever. I'm going to add to the NPC list. I'm seeing an NPC comment, keep digging. So the NPCs on YouTube keep saying, keep digging. Now that's got to be an NPC, right? It's like completely unrelated to what's happening right now. So here's the ask. I'm asking black Americans to understand that white Americans feel very, very uncomfortable and worried that the narrative is demonizing them and that has a really big negative impact. And if you don't see it coming, that will be bad for you. And I don't want that. I don't want tensions to grow to the point where, like, I don't know, it gets out of hand. So I need black Americans to understand that their actions have an impact on other people. And if they reorient themselves in a reciprocity model, they can have almost everything they want. It just won't happen right away. Here's what reciprocity would look like. Black America saying, you know what? I've had a tough time with all you Republicans, but we seem to agree on school choice. So how about this? We black Americans will give you Republicans a little bit of the benefit of a doubt. Sort of, we'll give you something. We'll work with you, even make your politicians look like they're doing a better job. But what we want in return, reciprocity, is a real fix for education, like a real deep fix. Reciprocity. Now, you tell me that wouldn't make the world better, not only for school, not only for fixing the biggest part of systemic racism, which is the inequality in the education system, but tell me that wouldn't make everybody feel better about everybody else. Oh, wow. You just treated me with respect, and we worked on this thing together, and then we got a thing together. Does that ever go wrong? Well, I suppose it could. You know, I'm not in favor of the overtly racist comments I'm seeing in the comments. So don't appreciate those.
That's your
And
audience.
the less you do that, the better.
Yeah.
All right.
At least he
Brendan,
attempted
you're
to
not fat.
control
It's
his
the shirt.
audience. At least he attempted to control his audience. That is wild. That is just wild. Really wild.
What else? There's a new Rasmussen poll. I think you'll see it maybe in a few hours, but I got a sneak peek. And
here's the part about the poll.
Here's my. It's talking about race relations. So the new Rasmussen poll is looking at people's opinions of race relations. Now, the last poll was justly from Rasmussen, was justly criticized because there were only 130 black Americans who were asked the question. It was a bigger poll. It was like 1,000 people were asked, but only 130 of them were black. Now, it turns out that what would you guess would be the margin of error for a poll that was only 130 people? If the 130 were correctly picked, to be randomized, etc. It's around 8%, about 8%. So people said, wait, that 130 is way too few people. It is. If you need to be within 2%, it's way too few people. But it's sort of an 8% margin of error, which means if it said 50% something, it might have been 42. I don't know if it really changes anything, but I don't trust that poll because it was the form of the question. But the new one is asking the question about race relations. But I'd like to make this differential. In my opinion, and this is just entirely anecdotal, let's see if you agree with this, agree or disagree, that race relations on an individual level are better than ever. Meaning two people standing in a room, better than ever. Right? Yeah, everybody's saying yes on the locals. What do you say on YouTube? Individually, one-on-one, better than ever. Oh, everybody on YouTube?
I wouldn't say better than ever. I don't know. Individually, when it came to the gang and mob mentality, yeah, it's better. Individually, and I can't say that I've personally experienced direct racism in a long time. Like direct outward fuck you nigga type of racism, and I've dealt with it in life. But it's been a while, especially like out here in PA. It's decent. Well, yeah, it's decent. Where you see individuals individually. I have many of Caucasian people out in this neck of the woods who will quickly hold the door. Hey, good morning. How you doing, brother? I'm doing good, brother. Have a good day. So on and so forth. And so, one-on-one in that relation, race relations are decent. But let's listen to what the point he's trying to make.
YouTube saying no. Not everybody, but way more no's. How interesting. I thought most of you would agree with that. Because as far as I know, interracial marriage is up.
Well, see, they said no too. His chat said no too.
Contact is up. And I never feel anything like any kind of racial thing when I'm talking to somebody individually. Like you don't feel any racial anything. You're just talking to somebody. But that's different from what we think about like race, right? So individually, I think it's all better. Who you hire, who you date, who you hang around with, all better, way better. But our feelings about the other group,
I could agree.
as a group, not as individuals, but as a group, I believe are not good. And so here's what Rasmussen said. 41% say race relations are getting worse.
You know what? I could agree with that. Individually, yeah.
41%. And interesting, yeah, I'll give you more breakdown. Group, not as individuals, but as a group, I believe are not good. And so here's what Rasmussen said. 41% say race relations are getting worse. 41%. And interesting, yeah, I'll give you more breakdown.
I could
Let me see
definitely
if you
see
could guess the next
41%.
number. What percentage of American adults do you think said that race relations in the nation today are good or excellent? How many people would have said the race relations are good or excellent? You're very close, 24%. 24%. I don't know how you do it. Your guessing is amazing. Yes, 24%. But that isn't much change since January of 1 year ago. Let's see, 41% now say race relations in America are getting worse, but that's down. Oh, okay. Only 18% now say race relations in America are getting better. So only 18% say it's getting better, and over 40% say it's getting worse. How many people, this will be another one, here's another tough question. People were also asked, is the way racial issues are treated by schools and universities, so that gets you to the CRT, stuff, is the way racial issues are treated by schools and universities helping to decrease racism? How many believe that the way the schools and universities are treating things decreases racism? Take a guess, what percentage? Oh, you're so good. You're so close. Yeah, you're very close. 23%. They think that the ESG stuff and CRT like stuff is helping. All right, and 44% say schools are making racism worse. And 20% say not much impact. All right, so if we didn't believe the Rasmussen poll about what black people think about white people, do you believe the Rasmussen poll that a whole bunch of people think race relations are bad and that the way people are being educated is making it worse? Do you think those conclusions would hold? By the way, a national poll is only 1,000 people. Did you know that? A national poll is only 1,000 people. But statistically,
Exactly.
That's all you need. That's actually plenty. There are lots of polls that are way less than 1,000, and they're still statistically useful. But 1,000 is completely useful.
Statistically.
So this is, even if you give or take 3 or 4% on these numbers,
Not for
does
you to
this
take the
support what I
stance
just
that you
said?
took.
That the way the public is being educated is making the public more uncomfortable about race, not less. What would you say? Is the case made? Yeah, the case is made. If because I don't think there's enough room for error in these questions or this size of a poll that it would change a conclusion. Like it might be off to a few percent, but it wouldn't change the conclusion that things are bad. People think they're getting worse, more people than think it's getting better, and that they can track it to the way they're being primed. Now, I would add to that, the impact of the media, the impact of all the cancelers, Look at how much dopamine was produced by canceling me. Think about this for a moment. How do you train a dog? You give him a treat. And it works every time. And it works for basically any animal that can be trained, a treat. Now, when somebody gets canceled, like me, and everybody gets to send their mean tweets, do you think they get a dopamine hit when they feel they've dunked on me?
See, now the idiocy is no one hears about the cancellation, or your few little shutdowns hasn't really meant anything to anyone but you. That's it. And you don't even care about it. You're using it to get bigger right now. That's it. You know what I mean? It's about what you said, period. Now, you continue saying that, and, it may have to come to a little more than just a few shutdowns. Like, my guy, you haven't been canceled. You're still on YouTube right now. Like, what do you, like,
Of course
these
they do.
people?
Yeah. It's a whole dopamine cycle. So I'm basically caught up in a dopamine cycle that's aided by an economic model that wants to boost every claim of, impropriety. And here we are. So if you wanted to look at this and say, this is about what Scott said, it totally is. It totally is. And I am the primary trigger for everything that happened. And of course, I knew there would be some, let's say, consequences. That was obvious. But wouldn't you say that the only reason we're here, like the situation, is because it's monetized and people are getting a dopamine hit from it? It's not about what's good or bad for Black Americans. Once again, Black America is ignored in favor of chasing ghosts. Right? Oh, we'll just go chase this ghost. This is cheap. This will get us a lot of clicks. So we're in the chasing ghost phase. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think?
So
Have
you did
I
all of this,
put
caused all this
myself
controversy
at the
for what?
fulcrum of power on one of the most important questions in the United States, and the only person who can explain it in a useful way? Or have I thrown away my career and my reputation for nothing? To be determined. Well, this movie is not over. There are some more twists and turns coming. I know some of them you don't, but stay tuned for that. But we probably do need to figure out some smarter way to be. Bumpy is not well informed. Sorry, Bumpy. So the opinions of me have formed into two movies, and the two movies are roughly this: people who understand the context and have no problem with me, and people who only saw the news coverage with some statements I made that were provocative, and they have a whole different view of me. Now that's never going to change, right? It's not like everybody's going to listen to the context. So that's my permanent situation. I'm permanently banned or permanently canceled. There's no way to get back, because most of the country isn't going to do any homework to find out what's going on. Right? Yeah, my books are all canceled, even the backlist. Even the already published books are going to be pulled off of Amazon and everywhere else.
Bad hit.
Right. So, in my opinion, reciprocity is the only thing that will save us from ESG and the other victimization, demonization theories. Watch how today there will be zero media coverage of what I said just now. Watch. there will be zero media coverage of my actual point about the way we're being trained is poisoning the people. You can see it in the Rasmussen poll. Shows that people are racially poisoned at the moment, and that has an obvious outcome, which is not good, and that we should be more reciprocating. And it doesn't mean monetarily, right? Just do things that are good for each other, and things will be good.
Want a lawn that looks like this, but your lawn looks a little bit more like this? Then you should click right here and check out True Green. We're the local lawn experts that guarantee results you can see. Every True Green lawn specialist brings a truck full of PhD-backed know-how with localized feed.
Allegedly, to bring attention to how the media is training us.
Yeah, the MSN.
To be
and
separate. What?
And it doesn't mean monetarily, right? Just do things that are good for each other, and things will be good.
Yeah, you're done, buddy. He asked the question, did he throw away his reputation and career for nothing? And yeah, it's all a part of that big game. It's crazy. It's really wild. People have bias and judgments about others and dislikes about others. Many people who never get a chance to be around others, people of another culture, another way of life, another mind state, another way of walking, another way of talking, another way of creating music, another way of listening to music. People, alliance. So, see if my dragon is back. Hey, little buddy. Oh, I have to feed my dragon. Yeah, when people aren't used to how others live their lives, it's sort of daunting when you first meet people, when you go different places. And this is someone coming from someone who was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, and yeah, that, oh, they done took over my clan, huh? Yeah, they probably done broke it all up. I don't know, understand why people do the things that they do, and I'm just like, yeah, do your best to stay away from foolishness and drama and craziness. You have no reason to hate anyone who looks different or loves different, walks different. Life is what it is, and at times life changes for us when we go through situations. As a black man, I've gone through situations that would alter or change anyone's life. Anyone's life. Some people complain about things, and at the end of the day, there are many people who go through things. Now, any level of trauma is serious, but when you go through things and they're life altering, life shattering, even you know what, I'll grant you, even of your own making, it's about what you do with that. Because you, sir, you are publicly crashing and burning right now, but you can make a comeback. It comes down to you. All comes down to you, straight lace. If you choose to keep going down the road where your entire way of doing things is to lay it at the feet of other people, then I'm not exactly sure how successful you'll be with that. All right, I'm done with this. It's been an hour dealing with this foolishness. You all can support him in the comic if you want. Yeah, I never really did from the start. He said he's helped black people, plenty of black people. All right, I feel you. Salute. And if you choose to stop helping them, I guess they'll be fine. I don't know what to tell you. Just, I'll see you all on kick.com. Be over there for a little while playing some Game of Thrones. You all tune in. Zoning out on me.